Hello and welcome to another inside look at the ASUP family. My name is Weldon and I will be your host on this journey. In today's video, we're talking about Robert the Doll. So the history of Robert the Doll starts with the Steiff Company from Germany. The Steiff Company was known for making teddy bears for the U.S. There are a couple of different stories about how Robert Eugene Otto, who went by Gene, came into possession of Robert the Doll. The first story is that his grandfather visited Germany in 1904 and brought back Robert with him as a gift to his grandson. The second story is that Robert's father was messing around with one of the servants there in Key West, and she came up pregnant. She ended up losing the baby either at birth or when the child was young age, and the mother was trying to get back at Jean's father. So the story with her says that she put a curse on the doll using some sort of voodoo technique and gave the doll to the family. So those are a couple of stories on how the doll came into possession of the Otto family. The rumor has it, or the story has it, that Gene was so obsessed with the doll that he gave the doll his first name, Robert. He would spend his entire day doing nothing but talking with the doll, playing with the doll. Um, There have been reports from the family that they would hear two voices coming from the attic, and when they approached it, the only person that was up there was Gene and Robert the doll. Now, also while he was growing up, Gene would blame any of the mishappenings in the house on Robert, saying it was Robert. Robert did this, Robert did that. Now, fast forward several years later, Gene moved to New York to pursue his career as a painter. He ends up getting married, and years later, his mother starts falling ill. So he moved back to Key West to spend time with his mother and help take care of her. Well, after his mother passed away, his wife and Jean stayed in his childhood home, where he came across Robert the doll, who had been stored away in a chest up in the attic. Now, reports come from Jean's wife that after Robert the doll was discovered again, Jean would spend his whole day with just Robert. And we're talking about Gene much later, you know, later in life, not just as a little boy anymore, but as a full grown man, spending his whole day talking to a doll. Now, after Gene passed away, the house was sold to the next door neighbors, the Myrtles, and the Myrtles report several ongoing crazy things with Robert the doll, different, seeing things, hearing things, different noises, different things would be moved. They said you could even look at his facial expressions, and his facial expressions would change. Well, the Myrtles decided to sell the house, but they decided to keep Robert the doll. So after taking possession of the doll and moving it into their home, uh, the lady of the house of Myrtles noticed many crazy things going on at their home and finally decided to get rid of Robert the doll and donated him to the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. 3 months after she gave Robert to the museum, she passed away. Now, Robert's on display at the Martello Museum in a sailor suit holding a dog. The sailor suit was actually Gene's clothes from when he was a little boy. He would dress Robert up in his clothes. Now, going back to the beginning of where Robert came from, the reason the story with the servant holds so much water is because there's been several reports from the actual Otto family to the Myrtles family to even people at the museum of them seeing a little girl about 5 years old in a white nightgown around Robert the doll. And it's also said that you can sometimes hear the little girl laughing, giggling, um, and saying other things. Robert the doll is now on display at the Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. where they actually had to put up a sign that has rules on it about visiting Robert the Doll. And the number one rule about Robert the Doll is do not take his photo without asking his permission first. Now, this sounds kind of crazy. You're taking a picture of an inanimate object, yet you're being told to ask its permission first. Well, they have reasons for this. Many people have reported that when they've taken a photo of Robert without asking his permission, they've either gotten sick um, or have had crazy stuff start happening around their house, or have possibly even seen Robert at their house. So all these little crazy things started happening for people that don't ask permission or are disrespectful towards Robert the Doll, even not at the museum, at their own homes. So that's why the curators at the museum actually ask people to ask permission of Robert before they can take photos of him. Now, the interesting thing is to tie the stories all together. The question was, where did Robert actually come from? Did he come from Germany? Was he provided by this servant? Um, to me, the story that holds the most water is the servant, because there have been several reports of people seeing a little girl ghost around Robert. They'll see about a 5-year old girl in a white dress. Um, you could also hear her giggling, her laughing, and this is all in the presence of Robert the Doll. So it kind of leads to the story of Jean's father and the servant having some sort of baby, with the mother of the child, the servant lady, being upset with Jean's father for whatever reason. And after that child had passed, did some sort of voodoo ritual to tie that child's soul to Robert the Doll. For those of you checking out my video, leave a like below, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, let me know what's going on. If you like the video, if you don't like the video, if you want to find out more about ASUP, please visit our website at asupinc.org. And also remember, if you ever visit the museum in Key West, don't forget to ask Robert permission before you take his photos.